I'll repeat that. A smile is the key that fits the lock of everybody's heart. And I think that that is a wonderful and warm way to open the key to success. Jill, if you would, prompt the slide, please. Oh, there I am. So this is not so much about me. It's more to say that after 30 years now in customer service, I always think we've learned a little bit and we know a little bit, but it is never a never-ending path to customer success. And I think the more we learn from and with each other, that we can always gain better insight. I happen to teach at a college now, and we have 2,000 students from 70 different countries at Kendall College. And I learn from our students in the next generation all the time that with technology and everything else swirling around us, that the reason that they really want to come to school is a skill set, but also to learn how we do customer service, especially in this country. So we should all be proud that people are coming here to learn how we do service. And it's my unique pleasure to be with you tonight. Next, please. So as we heard, the title of this is The Key to Success Begins with First-Rate Customer Service. So let's first define customer service. It used to be where customer service was the McDonald's, and if you're actually in front of a screen, that's an authentic 1955 McDonald's, which is now a museum. It's in Des Plaines, Illinois, which is not too far from our O'Hare Airport. I love the 15 cents, and I love the over 1 million hamburger sign. But what occurs to me, McDonald's set it up that people behind the counter were clearly just responding to a customer as he or she drove up and walked in McDonald's for a very reliable burger, shake, and fries. And now, in the modern age, the anticipation and the ability to foresee what a customer might need from us is really more the modern age. And as concierge, we have the ability to shape and are putting out our viewfinder of what they might think they might like, but we have the ability to shape their experience and their messages really like nobody. Even the word concierge, as we all know, is so special, and so many people relate to it as they're the ones who can get anything done anytime, and we all know the Herculean efforts that that can take. So instead of responding, we're anticipating. In my service walk, and each of you might look at this very uniquely, but I have found in 3 words or less that service is ESP, and by experiential. I had the good opportunity to get on a number of your websites and actually talk with a few of you before tonight. It was a personal goal to make this as customized as possible. And when I looked at Travel Guard's website, affiliated with Jill Stewart, and some of the testimonials for her company, it reminded me of being experiential. There's a testimonial on the website that was somebody with a crisis on board a cruise ship. And you could name that location anywhere in the world, but Travel Guard, and this is a quote, provided me with very personal service versus the guest writer actually wrote versus others I've purchased a plan in the past. And I thought experiential is really what that individual and how they experience service is very, very different than somebody else. If you had a twin, that person would experience service even differently. And likewise, being subjective is a wonderful way to think about another testimonial on the Travel Guard website. The title of it was Concierge Planning Makes a Good Vacation Great, with an exclamation point. And the writer wrote that they wanted to make the most of each hour, but how that would be entirely possible with so much to do. And I started thinking about the subjectivity of the way guests and clients and club members and all the people we serve whether it's in Nevada, Minneapolis, Arizona, or Chicago. But it's very subjective, and the way we give our service to each other is really based on their interpretation. And that might even change based on their influences, the budget they have. And I was very inspired by the testimonials on a few of your websites. Another one I'll mention is personal, ESP, P for personal. One very subjective and experiential guest wrote to Travel Guard from their concierge department saying, and thanking Travel Guard, saying, I started crying on the phone. And when we drive a guest to tears, hopefully it's for the benefit and it's positive, because when we strike a chord with them and they're able to see what we're doing for them, seems a miracle, but because it is something that they're not able to do at that time. And we have this magic power. We have the keys to make something happen that they would never have thought could. Next, please. So there are many other factors in delivering service. And so I've created an acronym for you, and in the Q&A, or if you have a question, you certainly can raise hand on the computer. The first is subjective. Pardon me, it is not. It's sincerity. Thank you. Is for me at the basis of all human communication. Reciprocating that other person's tone, the mood, and really attempting to get into their shoes. Find a way to say their names 3 times naturally. That's what they do in the Five Diamond hotels, is they find a way to find authentically who that person is and just naturally saying their name. Doing this genuinely, even when it's out of our comfort zone, can have long-lasting effects. Encouragement. Encouraging even a coworker or employees. Our guests and clients know when we are a team and things are humming along. And if we can encourage each other to, sounds trite, but be the best we can be, but at least the best service provider we can be. When we are offering unsolicited, unabashed praise, it's contagious. I find it a lingering effect that cheerleading, and when it's real especially, it can go a long way, especially when we're reserving judgment. Rapport. Well, a concierge best friend, to me at least, has been rapport. Rapport with our vendors, with those who we rely upon to offer mutually delivered service. The old water cooler Monday morning, how was your weekend conversation still has its place, but even more so with all of us who are on electronic and virtual communication with our client. The rapport building has to take place on a regular, fluid type basis, not only on electronics, and checking our emails, etc., is important so that we're in step with our clients and their needs on a regular basis. And never has it been more important to build rapport with people who rely on us, but mostly trust the concierge. And V for value. In a time when all of a sudden everything is relevant, especially in a state of economy and bigger than all of us factors, when flights are canceled and snow comes and whatever is in our world, the value of what we're trying to provide still maintains its role at whatever is essential. This helps solve a challenge for the traveler. In TripAdvisor, there's created a special value or critique by the person from who it matters most, the recent guest or the recent patron. In other words, guests convey their own experience, making it not only experiential, but review founded on subjectivity and also the personal viewpoints. And the value of this to a hotel, to a restaurant, a cultural institution, a transportation provider is nothing that they can really pay for, even promote. But it is how our guests perceive that value. And I would suspect, especially in the Las Vegas market, since many of you with EBG you have something to offer that they covet. So my sensibility of value is people covet what they cannot have. There's a higher stake when we raise the value of something. And that value is interpreted for future guests. When our guests leave us, our clients leave us to go on to another city, they might share that information with somebody else. Initiative, extending ourselves, which as concierge that is a given, but raising the stakes and always taking a risk. In service, it's often about the surprise in positive ways, and initiating service empowers us. It's taking the seal off something new, like unwrapping a package or getting everyone energized. It reminds us of why we take that risk in the first place. It was about 15 years ago before I became a concierge, and I was in Chicago near our Museum of Contemporary Art. And a woman came by, or drove by, in one of those old estate station wagons, and one of the kids yelled out, "Excuse me, do you know where the Modern Art Museum is?" And my sensibility as an art person said, well, the Modern Art Museum is in New York, but you happen to be, which of course I didn't say, but I said, the Contemporary Art Museum is right around the corner. And then the mother started driving off, and I started chasing the car and said, but wait, it's Monday and it's closed. And the lady said, oh, that's a shame. What else should we do? And I said, well, and I was able to provide a few wonderful aspects of Chicago, cultural attractions that were not free that day. But I did pull out 4 passes that I had in my briefcase back when you were carrying such a thing. And the lady said, how do you have these passes? And I said, they were just given to me and I wasn't even a hotel concierge. It was about taking a risk, talking to someone on the street, and we are all of that nature. We're more likely to help somebody that we don't know sometimes than someone down the hall. Contribution. My word for 2013, and I need to figure out what 2014 is going to look like, but was that everything I do, make all that you do indelible. Everything we do has to be solid, and we get one chance to make that impression. It doesn't go away, whether it is an email or a note or an action of any kind. And in contributing, I believe it's the we factor. Our founder in the NCA, Sarah Ann Kasner, and this goes back at least 8 years ago, reminded me there's no I in team, T-E-A-M. And I started thinking about that a while ago. And when a client request comes in and only a few people are asked to be involved at a close-up level, where it gets to be a really juicy and fun request that everybody wants to entangle themselves with, sometimes the rest are wondering what they're doing there, and it becomes one person's ideas that are carried out. We need to give credit and watch how everybody contributes and take note of everybody who made something happen. This includes volunteers and willing spirits. That doesn't mean people who aren't getting paid, but anybody who volunteers information. And allow everyone and encourage everyone to make a contribution. And take advantage of those who raise their hands high, or the level of engagement can flatline. Thank you. And only a few days from now, one of the world's sports spectaculars with the Super Bowl, this comes to mind. Nike's first advertising campaign before Just Do It was in 1977. Some of you might remember this. There is no finish line. This was a signature in the Super Bowl advertisements, way back when Super Bowl ads were 1.5 minutes, can you imagine, versus 15 seconds in today's world. As an analogy to service, there is no finish line, and that's copyrighted. There is no off-season. We're not with our clients and guests, and when we aren't, We're doing scouting reports like any quarterback so we can run interference when we need and make tracks with even the more challenging requests that sometimes can run us goal to goal. And that is the service acronym for you: sincerity, encouragement, rapport, value, initiative, contribution, and the ultimate goal, the end zone. For me, service makes the world go round. I've often thought, why do we do this? What is in our psyche that we continue to carry on this noble cause and this idea that people of all different walks of life are affected by what we do? Maybe not directly, but when I think about how we engage people. I was on Polly Panko's website, and the way that the wording on her exquisite website, I believe since 1982, I think I've got the year right, that the our, meaning O-U-R, staff proves their worth, and I'm reading now, by providing over and over again helpful services to your ever-important members and our conference attendees. And I kept on thinking, what drives internal and external? And that is service. It's inherent in what we do and how we get people to learn how to ask us. Well, we can't really ask them to ask for requests better, but we can help them find what they need from us. They might not even think that they are in line for what we need or for what they need before they even call us. They might not have a budget ready, and that's frustrating, we know. But it's really up to us as concierge to help them understand how to create a budget. If they're an event planner in your organization, or an event planner relies on your website to find you, and all of a sudden you're in front of them, landing this big new client that you're very excited about as a consultant or even as an internal concierge to a company. A lot of times we are their beacon, and they get the credit, and most of the time that's okay. So just some food for thought that's always been helpful to our company is service is the essence of what we do. It is who we are at the core and how we do everything. For us as concierge, it is about giving the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm positive that's a Hallmark commercial. But every time we give something, it feels great to stand back and don't say a word. When you're in the back of the ballroom or in the back of anywhere that you've just made something happen, you look out and you say, because of me, I made this happen. But you're not in a position to take credit. You always want to pass that torch to your customer and let them get the accolades, and just know that it was you who was the soft wind behind them. Sometimes we forget because we're so busy thinking about what we're going to do next. We don't have a chance to find out really what our own motives are for doing this, but to understand and to be understood are very universal themes. And when you think about in Chicago, we have 28 sister cities, and all of you have destinations that you have a connecting point with and are very well traveled. I was on a few of your Facebook pages and very impressed with the passports that each of you have. And looking out thinking, how many people in this world are able to see the whole world like a concierge? We have this ability to, when someone says, I'm going to Mumbai, you might not know exactly where in India it is, or maybe you do, but you're able to make a phone call or send an email or make something happen for somebody more than halfway around the world. And if lunar space travel ever takes off for consumers, I think we need a fam trip. All of us would be the first in line, because we really need to be ahead of what our customers are thinking and try to understand what their needs are And also, people need to be understood. A lot of people will raise their voice if they're talking to somebody in a different language, and it's one world by now. And it's always encouraging when somebody makes the effort to learn a different language or to take on the understanding of a different culture. And I think that both of those aspects are important, another language and another culture. My goal for this year is to get to know a different country one every month. So it's only 12. I have about 180 after that. It's going to take me a decade to do this. But it's a personal challenge, and you may enjoy doing that as well. Taking time to observe. We're so, again, active in doing that sometimes we don't pause and look back and say, what else could we be doing for our jobs? Those of us who are consultants, those of you who work for corporations, in the flurry of all the meetings, reports, deadlines, and yes, sometimes politics, taking time to observe, finding out what really matters to everybody. You may think you're seeing it all and are omniscient in some way, and perhaps you are, but recall the last time you really took time to see what was going on around you and what is going on inside the organization. It shouldn't be forced, such as only at performance evaluation time. It's the off time, the management by walking around, is when you can observe this random act of kindness or random act of anything, or you can see loopholes of where folks could better collaborate, and your vendors. When was the last time we all looked and actually paid attention to how our vendors were operating their business? We took a trust and a risk in the beginning with them, and we probably should just visit and revisit and put those goggles back on to make sure that they are supplying our guests with what they promised that they would do. And take time to listen. We've all been through numerous listening training sessions. While helpful, we don't always hear it enough. I have to remind myself to not always be thinking of my response to someone's question or thought, even before they're done speaking. It always occurs to me that I'm trying to help somebody, and I really haven't listened exactly to what they're asking me. They might start out with one inquiry, and it may end up to be a completely different request. So taking the necessary time to listen, those three little words, tell me more, that's tell me more, have great power, especially when someone is ranting and they can expand on what they normally wouldn't be able to tell you if you encourage them instead of saying, I understand. It's very empowering to say, so what else do you want to say? And open up the question and saying, well, it's always done this way, or it's our policy, which I know none of you would ever say. But be intentional with the way you're listening. That alone could be a gift. And a possible change of venue might even provide a better listening and quality of listening, meaning if you're in the hallway in the corporation, you might want to go to the lounge area or somewhere where not a lot of people are going around you and encircling. Or if you're a consultant meeting off premise from both of your locations, neutral territory. Instead of always meeting in a certain corner, go off premise. Get out of the rut of thinking what someone is going to say so that it's less predictable and you'll actually learn. Aha. Some of you who are looking at the slide, this was a frog on the cement in front of our house in August. Yes, well before the snowstorm. The frog reminded me that in almost every conversation, especially in corporate life, and with our customers, there can be a hidden agenda. What aren't they saying? And we can pry that open through obviously nonverbal nonverbal acts if they're in front of us, or even in their voice. If you are open to hearing hesitation or something, what aren't they saying? Why did they move that meeting to Denver? Because the CEO's daughter goes to college at Colorado College or something. What aren't they saying that is going to guide you to provide them with better decision making and better answers to their many requests? So look for that frog. Many times we think of 4 or 5-star diamond level hotels as the essence of fabulous service. And as an alumna from such a place, I have reminded myself and my clients that if we look at service the way it feels and sounds when you walk into one of the world's greatest hotels, you're always going to see that person in a different light. You could be at a Sheraton, a Holiday Inn. Did you ever look at somebody at a McDonald's and you're having your hot tea or your French fries, whatever, and you think that was outstanding service. That person should be at the Ritz-Carlton. The good news is there's plenty of room at the Ritz-Carlton for exquisite service thinkers, but there's also room in other organizations to have a Ritz or fill in the blank of luxury service. So if we can look at service, feel it, and sound, and make it look like something as if a Ritz-Carlton, we can awaken the Ritz within. That happens to be the lobby of our Ritz-Carlton in Chicago. And just listening first to the hum of that stunning fountain in the middle, it really is a sanctuary. And if you're ever in Chicago, you have an open invitation to walk through with any of us in our area. And if you'd turn the next slide, please. I would ask you, what does service look like to you? And are you providing that image in your everyday walk, in your brochures, when you attend a trade show? Every moment of truth that you have with your customer, are you offering something that looks and feels like service? Each of these 4 personalities, and we could fill in the blank with people from around the world about what service looks like. The CEO of Scandinavian Airlines, John Carlson, wrote a book about 20 years ago called The Moment of Truth. And he said if a passenger is arriving at the airport, he or she will have 5 touchstones with the cargo person or the luggage handlers, the ticket taker, the reservationist, the crew actually on the airplane, the pilot, the customer service rep. So there might be 5 different touchstones. He boasted 10 million passengers in the heyday of Scandinavian Airlines. So 5 touchstones times 5 touchstones times 10 million people is 50 million impressions. And that's a very high number. And I always think, what am I offering and what am I looking like to the services that I'm providing? What does service feel like? Is it the satin bow? Is it the blue box? Is it the Tiffany blue box? What does it feel like to other people? Going back to being experiential, subjective, and personal, service is very deep. And a lot of times we really don't know how to even explain it. We might just say it's great, or just use some generic adjective to say, how was your dinner? And you just turn to your guest and you say, you just have to go because it's so spectacular that just walking in, you'll know what I mean. And so it's sometimes hard to describe what service feels like. We can show a picture. We can send them testimonials for an event. We can try to tailor the message. I was looking at Rhonda Sprague's Tailored Concierge website in Buckhead, And I like the arrangement on Rhonda's site where it said who she serves. And many of you might have the same tab on your site. But she listed the superwoman, power couples, professionals, elderly, executives, companies, vacationers, and the last word was everyone. And while we don't want to be wishy-washy and offer the same experience to everybody, I get the sense that every concierge lives for perfecting and organizing an itinerary for somebody that's in front of them and making it personal and trying to understand what the guest or the traveler might feel like when they're consuming that experience. Next, please. And finally, what does service sound like? That's the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in our slide. And is it symphonic? Are things coming together? Or do our guests and clients and club members and all the people that we serve, what do they hear? What does it actually sound like to them? Is it clutter? Is it, does it come together in one unified symphony? And I would urge you to think about how you work with your team, how you address your clients. And service words are so much fun to think about. When you think about recommend or consider the options, or I'd be delighted to serve you, and using we instead of I, even if it's just yourself, or using a word such as ultimate and highly. I write down adjectives when I hear somebody else using scintillating, and of course we're almost in the season of awards, so everybody who gets up at the Grammys or the Oscars has a superlative word to show, but always being positive in how we sound. Negative words such as but. When I hear but, it's almost a yield sign that whatever somebody's going to say to me, what follows might sound negative, so I brace myself. Or saying, as I said, those are harsh words. What means to somebody else, well, you obviously weren't paying attention. We want to make it more cordial and congenial so that they'll want to talk with us. And if we use I, which is sometimes generational, you're lessening the we factor. And it's a little bit old-fashioned etiquette, but when you offer somebody, how can I assist you versus how may I assist you? So I always urge my clients to consider what are they hearing? And that is the question. What does your service sound like? And to be a champion, all of you have exceptional stories, no doubt, about how you discovered the rewards of serving beyond expectations. There are unlimited stories of the concierge who saved someone's life, literally by getting the right doctor to provide the right kind of medicine at the right time. How a front desk at the hotel, somebody was able to give the front desk agent, that is, was able to offer his own uniform, a pressed new uniform, to someone going to a wedding here in Chicago when the guest had about 8 minutes to change, basically because of a lost luggage, and had nothing to wear to a wedding. And our front desk agent came to the rescue, and they happened to be the same size. And to be that service champion, I would encourage you to think about, when was the last time you celebrated with your team what rewards you provided that were way above and beyond the expectation? Did you just think that this is what we're supposed to be doing, or did you actually honor it, celebrate it, put it on your website, let the world know this is why we do what we do, and always to be the champion of service? If you express yourself with words and gestures that are insightful, genuine, and out of the ordinary, make it really extraordinary, hospitable, and engaging. So many times we find ourselves in a rush. We're not using the right language or we're not paying attention to people around us, but to really find that success is very important. A lot of times we can look to others. I was rereading the book. It's called The Nordstrom Way, and some of you might have already read it. Mine is already dog-eared, highlighted. I want to read it again. And it was expounding upon a woman salesperson in the sportswear department. And she said, it may say Nordstrom on the front of the building, but I want the customer, when she thinks of Nordstrom, to think of me. She believes that at her department, it's her franchise. And what if we all could think about ourselves as running, even we consultants, think about how we're empowered to say, why are people buying what we do? Why do we always get that special call? And if we're not getting, if our business is down or something, what was it about the last 3 clients? Please notice the patterns, that if you've recently lost a piece of business or it just might have been bad timing or something, but overall, what could you have done that made it different? And if the customer knows that it's your business and that you're taking it very personal, they will absolutely love that fact. There's also a book called It's My Company Too, and it's about how entangled companies move beyond their employee engagement, meaning that every person who works there is as engaged as the owner, as the name on the door, and there's nothing like being in a hotel or a restaurant or any type of service provider that knows that everybody working there is beating to the same drum. In the hotel language, we always address people. It's so basic, but in this fast and furious world, I've noticed that people forget to acknowledge people. It's so small, and you are probably never in this category. But there's many phrases that inspire in the hotel back door that says, first, last, and always. And in this case, this very gentle greeter, if you're looking at the slide, when do we address a guest? First. We always do. We always address them first. I was in a hotel recently, and I had to say hello first to the first 5 employees that I came into. Or in retail, when you're looking for somebody who works there. Have you ever walked around and said, does anybody work here? I guess everything must be free tonight because nobody seems to be working here. We always want to be that person that extends ourselves first. And last, meaning we always bid the person a goodbye or a gentle best wish. And when do we do this? Always. It's this very silly mantra, but it's something that has always stuck with me for the last several years. When we address others, it should be first, last, and we always do that. A year ago today, I happened to be in New Orleans, and the old Cajun word lagniappe, and some of you might be of that heritage, and meaning the cherry on the top, a little something extra. And it's quite invigorating, I think, as concierge, when we are the magic makers and we have the key to make something happen. That beautiful, beautifully laid out chocolate sundae in front of us who have pictures, without the cherry on top, it would still be delectable and enticing and good enough for a spoon. But with the cherry on top, and I think a lot of those cherries end up in the waste, it just adds to the picture of how we revere service. And I'm reminded of this at the bakery when someone has a baker's dozen. If you know on Wednesdays that your bakery gives away 13 or the baker's dozen, then it's not as special. But if they give you a dozen and the person behind the counter gives you one more and says, you know what, it's Wednesday and I'm feeling special, I'd like to give you one extra. It just feels different and it's not expected. So think about the ways in your business, in your company, that you can provide something a little bit extra with the cherry on top. And each of you has the most incredible, and I'm sorry if I haven't addressed all of you. I did get on all of your websites, and I'm amazed at everything that you do in our world as concierge, as business professionals, as meeting planners, and the many, many roles you wear. And when you think about your service point of view, your POV, you have a lot of roles to play in any one day, and you're not always going to please everybody you run into. You might be the humorist of the day. You might be the motivator. You might be the diplomat or the storyteller, someone who can regale your customers and other people. And there's always someone behind the scenes that is the Yoda, someone who's very wise. But all of us have to be all of these things all of the time, because that is how our customers and our consumers and people we deal with on a regular basis revere us. We are, the magic makers. We need to be reminded of what makes us special for the high wattage result. And lastly, that's me, cooking away. Always remember the key to success begins with customer service. I really appreciate your listening. This is really a great joy and an honor to address the members and the potential members of the National Concierge Association, a much beloved organization in my mind. And if I may entertain any questions right now or just off topic, on topic, whatever you wish.
Any questions for Stephanie? Oh, Jennifer, I see you have your hand raised. Sorry.
Yes.
Do you want me? Oh, I can read it. How do you start over as a concierge with a new company when it took you such a long time to get to the company you have always wanted to work for? If your previous boss you worked for asked you to come back, would it be damaging to your growth and development of becoming a better concierge?
If you wouldn't mind repeating that, please. I'm not seeing it on my computer, so if you could just read it one more time, please.
Jennifer, I don't know if you're comfortable speaking it. You probably will be able to word it better than I can read it.
Absolutely. Okay. How do you start over as a concierge with a new company when it took you such a long time to get to the company you've always wanted to work for? If your previous boss you worked for asked you to come back, would it be damaging to your growth and development of becoming a better concierge?
That would be a fantastic opportunity, Jennifer. And I'm sorry, I don't know, which organization are you with?
I formerly worked for Hilton Grand Vacation.
Excellent. Welcome to the call and to being a concierge. So you're looking to start over and possibly with a new company, or maybe you're asking this for somebody else. If your former boss is in that location?
They're in the same proximity of the town, but two different employers.
I think that most people are very forgiving, and I would sort of disregard anybody who's hanging on to the past as much as possible, because we know that going forward is a lot more profitable and a lot more positive. I would look at new skill sets and just pull together everything that you've done since you left the organization to begin with. And whether it's in technology or you've expanded your client base or your own repertoire, if you've become a proofreader or you've taken Mandarin or whatever your new skill sets are, they're bound and determined they'd be looking at with you with a much more respectful eye. You might not be best friends with everybody right away, but you will gain their respect, and that is, for me, paramount when you're working with other people. Okay. Is that helpful?
It's very helpful. I'm just trying to figure out, I really wanted to work there my whole entire life. Ever since I started as a concierge, I actually started at the Hyatt. And just due to, layoffs and budget cuts, that now I have to start over, but I've been asked to come back and start something new with the previous company. So I'm just kind of torn of what to do and where to go, because it would be a whole new development, but for my former employer.
I would, in soft skills, it's really not easy to share with somebody about how terrific you are. That's why you have an association to back you up and testimonials come in different forms, and I would take as many of the examples that have been positively written about you and your service, whether it's comment cards or TripAdvisor or whatever the media is, and really, instead of putting it in a wheelbarrow and pushing it down the road, just find a way and a composite and a portfolio to show them what it is you've been doing, and you'll be taken very seriously and very honorably. And you may even surprise yourself that even though you wanted to do this for a long time in that company, that you've even found a new company inside of the old name.
Okay.
And please call me. My phone number's there. I'm definitely 24/7. So if there's something you want to role play or do some sort of negotiation skills practice, I've done a lot of work in that arena too. Anything I may do for you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll be looking for your success.
Carol, did you want to share your comment? It wasn't really a question, but.
Yeah, I just, I love the inner Ritz idea. And when you said that, it really made me just think, wow, I need to stand up straighter and dress more professionally and talk more clearly. It just gave me such a strong mental image as far as creating that environment. So thank you for that idea.
And that's Carol Mulliken from Houston?
Yes.
Well, that's because you're the only one who's warm, except for our friends in Nevada.
Oh, no, not today.
That's true. That's true. Well, so much of our personal image, people are very aware of ourselves. Even if we are sort of struggling or it's an off day, their antennae are very attuned. And you just want to be alert to our personal image. I've done a lot of work in nonverbal. And incidentally, as we cross the international timelines and we are all now thinking of working in other cultures, and culture doesn't mean just Dubai. Culture could be the next county over because it feels and looks different from where we are. And everybody always thinks gender difference or different persuasions. And I think the less we judge each other, the more of the open conversation we'll have. But we are in the human condition. We're always going to be people. And as long as we're people, we're going to have experiential guidelines about what brought us to those decisions. And I salute you for thinking about that, taking it seriously. I have many, many resources, Carol, if you ever want to explore that a little further.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Stephanie?
Oh, I just wanted to thank her so much for a wonderful presentation. It was absolutely fantastic.
Bravo.
No problem.
So, Stephanie, I have one question. If you could do anything differently, is there anything you'd do differently
Oh gosh, we don't
to
have
increase your success?
4 hours. I think what's wonderful about being a consultant and having years as a concierge, I urge people, excuse me, I don't usually say that word. I urge the next generation to keep a business journal. Diaries are wonderful. They remind us of who we are and how far we've come. But a business journal of who are our mentors, what messages affect us, reading the New York Times and a clip. It could be a clip file. We're so programmed now to put everything, and it could be virtual. You could do a notepad or Evernote or whatever it is, but keep some sort of clipping system or clipping service, we used to call it in public relations, where when we hear a tidbit or a positive message or something that sparks interest, or quite honestly, negative, that we keep those files. I feel like I've kept that, and I have. If you ever come to my house in my home office, it's very organized, but I have my Nordstrom section, and I have my international language section. It's kind of nerdy and quite librarian-like, but it works for me. So I urge you to stop, take a moment at some point, and start journaling. Start writing, or let someone else do the writing, and take those articles and keep a clip file of things that matter. And I don't mean restaurant reviews. Those are important, but really how we run our concierge practice, and make sure we review those with our teams and ourselves, and even our spouses and our family, so they know when it's a Saturday at 4 p.m. and you need to go deliver Cubs tickets for an evening game or something, that they understand why it's very important for you to do this, because it's their judgment of what might be important to our clients. And we just say, we've got to do this. So share your successes with those who love and adore you. And that's the other thing. Remind everybody why you do this in the first place. Is that journal idea helpful?
That is very helpful.
When you start yours, let us know how it's going. I'm catching up myself, so it'll be fun to compare notes down the road.
Well, thank you so much for such a great session.
Thank you all. Is anybody, Jill is coming to Chicago soon. Anybody else? We should start shoveling now for your arrival.
I'll be there at the end of February.
Got it.
Well, again, thank you, Stephanie, for your time tonight. And I think I cut it off in the recording, your introduction, but the knowledge that you bring through your service roles and history, both with the NCA and the service and hospitality, and as well as the Service Speaks company that you founded in October of 2010. You've been a great asset, and we really appreciate your time tonight and making yourself available for future questions or comments. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And once again, remember, a smile is the key that fits the lock of everybody's heart. So I'm smiling at all of you from Chicago tonight.